Okay, good evening. I am Dr. Scott McClanahan, and I'm the Director of Advanced Academics for Waco ISD. Thank you for joining us tonight for the first session of our college readiness session, Tuesdays to tomorrow. So first, we'll start off. Really, our goal for tonight is to increase the understanding of the rigor and types of advanced academic classes in Waco ISD. The common problems experienced by the students in these classes and ways to avoid these obstacles. We feel like if we can really give students and parents some different guidance on how to respond when students start to struggle, that we'll have a lot more success as we move students through our advanced academics classes. Our essential questions for tonight: first, what are PreAP and AP classes? And what is dual credit, and how are those two different? How are we doing in Waco ISD with these offerings to prepare our students for college readiness? And what needs to change, and how are we doing that? And then finally, how you can help. So, what is PreAP and advanced placement? Well, advanced placement is a program that is designed by the College Board out of New York, and it is designed to encapsulate the curricula of college courses similar to that advanced placement course. The courses themselves have to be guided by a syllabus. The teachers of those courses have to submit to the College Board for what they call an audit. And a course cannot be designated on a student's transcript with the letters AP unless the teacher teaching that course has been approved by the College Board and their syllabus has been audited. Those courses are driven by a final examination. So at the end of every advanced placement course in May, there is an advanced placement test. It is a test that is scored on a 5 scale. And if a student, according to Texas law, is going to go to a Texas state school, if they get a 3 or higher, then a Texas state institution will grant them credit for that equivalent college class. And so we are always looking at our numbers, looking at where our students are to make sure that we've got our students on the right trajectory to be able to get those 3s or higher. A PreAP course is exactly what it sounds like. It is a course that is designed to get students ready to take and pass those AP exams. And so we offer PreAP courses in all of our core classes: English, math, social studies, science, foreign language, and we even have PreAP courses in art that lead up to an AP art class. They really work on equipping students with strategies for higher thinking and to develop a level of confidence when they're looking at that AP level material, so that as they are being introduced to those concepts that they'll see again on the AP test, that those are things that they can readily remember and refer back to as they keep building knowledge on top of that. So what is dual credit? Well, dual credit courses are overseen by an institution of higher education. So in Waco ISD, all of our dual credit courses are offered through an agreement with either TSTC or with MCC. And what that means is the dual part means that students are earning both high school and college credit at the same time. Now, where the drawback is to that is, while they're earning credit at the same time, the grades that they get in those courses are also affecting both their high school and college GPAs at the same time. So it sounds great, students want to take a lot of courses, but then they don't always think through exactly what that means to their grades and their grade point averages, and they get themselves overcommitted. We'll come back to that in a minute, but these courses are something that we're really proud of in Waco ISD, because with the passing of the tax rate ratification election last November, Waco ISD now pays for all dual credit courses for all students in our district. So we supply the textbooks for the courses, we pay the tuition and the fees. And so we're really excited about being able to offer our students that opportunity. These courses are offered to high school students for both high school and college credit, and up until this year, they were only offered to juniors and seniors. But the the House of Representatives of the state of Texas actually passed a bill about a year ago that lifted the restrictions off of dual credit and now allows dual credit courses to be taken by any high school student as long as they have qualified to be able to take those courses with the TSI. And that is a specific assessment that they need to be able to pass that shows that they're college ready. Dual credit courses can be administered in a number of different ways. They can be offered at the high school campus. They can be offered at the high school campus by a college instructor. They can be offered at the high school campus by somebody who is a Waco ISD employee who has a master's degree and a certain number of graduate credit hours in that area that they can be certified from MCC to be able to teach that course. We have some courses where we will send students out to MCC to take the course. And we have other courses that we offer online in an online dual credit lab where they are supervised by a certified teacher. So we offer those students the ability to work with an MCC instructor, but not have to go to MCC to do that, but also be able to have that advantage of having a certified teacher in the Waco ISD school that oversees their work and makes sure that they understand the material and they're keeping up with the assignments. Now, a lot of parents will ask, is one of these programs better than the other? And really the answer is no. Really, they each have their benefits and they each have their drawbacks. So if you look in the top row about advanced placement courses, some of the benefits are that they are nationally normed. So what is taught in those classes is the same everywhere in the nation because all of those courses had to have had their syllabus audited. Now, every teacher gets a little degree of freedom as to how they approach it, but the material taught within the course is normed across the country. They are considered rigorous. They are cost effective if a student is able to pass the AP test at the end of the year. They have been found by the College Board to be impactful on student performance, even if a student takes and doesn't pass the AP test. College Board studies have found that if students take the AP test simply by sitting in the AP test, whether they pass the test or not, that they have found that they have a 15% higher likelihood to graduate from college, just from having gone through that experience. And then finally, the examination for those AP classes is actually paid for by Waco ISD. So we offer those tests are $93 a piece. And at most other districts, students are responsible for paying for those. In Waco ISD, I pay for all those. Now, what are some of the drawbacks? Well, it gives children only one chance to gain that college credit. So if they have a bad day, if they're sick on the day of the AP test, and they don't pass, they don't get the credit. They still get the credit through the high school, but they don't get the equivalent college credit. They are inconsistently accepted by colleges. Some college will accept this AP score for credit. Other colleges won't. Some will accept it for 2 classes of credit. Other colleges won't. Some classes will accept 2 different AP exams for the same credit. So it really depends upon where your child is thinking about going to college and what their major is going to be. But on almost every college website, if you go to the website and you type in advanced placement credit, some kind of information will come up about how they accept that credit, what they accept it as, and what courses or exams are going to be most valuable for students to take. It's difficult for weak test takers. So students who have problems reading, who don't have strong vocabularies, or who just have test anxiety, they struggle during the AP tests. And when they only get one chance to pass that test to get the credit, then that's really detrimental, even if they've done well in the class the entire year long. And then finally, they're very challenging for English language learners due to time constraints because they are timed tests. Now, we offer the STAR test in Texas that is timed, but if you look at the amount of time students actually take on that test and the amount of time that they're given, there's usually a good cushion there when students have already finished and they're sitting in the room waiting for the test time to finish. The AP test, students work from the time the clock starts until they tell them to put their pencils down, and most students don't get through the whole test. And so students who have language issues, that weighs even more heavily upon them. So what about dual credit? Well, dual credit classes, they're college credit earned for any passing grade. So rather than just getting credit for one test performance, they get credit based upon their performance in the class over an entire semester. The performance is it's performance dependent rather than test dependent. It is cost effective if the classes are passed, because again, students don't pay for them. I pay for them out of my department budget. And so if students earn that credit and they can move that forward with them to college, then that actually helps them to cut those college expenses and be able to get out of their degree programs sooner. And the tuition is paid for by Waco ISD. What are some of the drawbacks? Well, they are considered by some to be less rigorous than AP. And really, that is dependent upon the course. It's dependent upon the course and the teacher and what the teacher actually goes through and how that material is presented within the course. Implementation can be inconsistent depending upon the teacher and the method of instruction. So a dual credit course could look different here than it looks if it was taken in La Vega, or if it was taken in Robinson, or if it was taken in Midway. And so you don't get quite as much consistency because they're working with different institutes of higher education. And then finally, they're inconsistently transferable. So just like students run into problems with AP test scores, that some will give them more credit than others, it's the same thing with dual credits, especially considering classes that are within a student's major. For instance, if a student wants to take a dual credit calculus class, and they are going into a STEM area, science, technology, engineering, math area. Typically, colleges want the students to take their calculus class. So even if a student has already taken a dual credit calculus class, most colleges will transfer that in as an elective math class, or they will use it as a placement for a higher level math class rather than have it fulfill calculus, because they want that leveling of all the students in the program. So the same kind of inconsistency you get with AP, you get with dual credit. But again, on any college website, if you go in and you type in transfer credits, it will tell you what credits they will accept. In fact, on some of them, if you go in, they will actually even have a little search engine that will allow you to pull up the institution of higher education where you took the class, like at MCC, and then it will tell you what MCC classes transfer as what classes at that institution. And so being able to know what colleges students are interested in, it gives them some good understanding of what classes that they want to choose as they're doing their course selection. Okay, so strengths of both the AP and the dual credit, and really there are strengths for both of them. Number one, they are viewed by colleges as the most rigorous course selections that a student can take. And if students want to be competitive in the admissions process, that is of paramount importance. They want to know that students did not take all of the easy electives to get through. They want to know that students have actually challenged themselves and taken rigorous courses that have prepared them for college work. Both of them are weighted in terms of GPA. So if students are willing to take on these advanced academics courses, then they are actually rewarded by getting a GPA enhancement that is meant to offset if their performance is a little bit lower than it would have been in a non-advanced academics class. It helps to equalize it so that they don't penalize themselves for taking a more difficult class. And regardless of whether it's dual credit or it's advanced placement, Both of them receive the same weighting. So where are we in Waco ISD? Well, let's talk about these 4 things. So in Waco ISD in 2015-16, our students passed 28.9% of the 570 AP tests taken district-wide. Now, that is, for our district, a 7-year high in terms of passing percent. But the sad fact is that right now, that is only about half of the rate of passing if we look at the state or the national passing rate. So we know that we still have work to do, but our passing rate actually increased about 9% this year alone. 2 years ago, our passing percent was 11.4. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing to get our kids taking these classes and prepared for the tests. In 2015-16, we offered 17 advanced placement courses between the 2 high schools, and additionally, Tennyson Middle School offered AP Spanish to 8th graders at Tennyson, and can I tell you that this year they had 100% of their students pass the AP test at 8th grade, which is really an amazing accomplishment. Last year, we actually had 22 courses between the 2 high schools, and what we had was 7 courses that we could look historically and see our kids were not succeeding in, where we had 0 kids pass or 1 student pass each year. And so what we did was we actually turned those classes over into dual credit classes, and then we brought in other AP classes this year so that we could keep increasing the number of AP offerings that we have. So we cut some this year, but really we cut the ones that were not going to help our kids be successful or actually earn that college credit as they move on. In 2015-16, Waco ISD students passed 96% of the 667 dual credit courses for which they registered. Last year, we had a 97% pass rate, but we only had 278 courses taken during last school year. So we actually increased our participation in dual credit courses by 140%, and our passing rate only dropped 1%. And that is really, I give the greatest amount of kudos to our students. This summer, in fact, we sent 135 students from Waco High and University High on buses every morning at 7:30 over to MCC to take summer classes. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever taken a summer class, but summer classes take 16 weeks of material and compact it down into 5 weeks. Our students walked out of those classes with 138 A's, 35 B's, 7 C's, 4 D's, and 3 F's. And the students that got the F's, they just stopped going to class. It wasn't about their performance in the class, it was that they just stopped going. That is absolutely phenomenal. And can I tell you that the majority of those students had just finished freshman year. That's really impressive. And then last, Waco ISD offered 27 academic dual credit courses between the 2 high schools last year. The previous year, we had offered 8. This year, that number will be close to 39, I think, that we have offered between the 2 campuses. And every year, as we phase in our early degree program, our Accelerate program, which we will have a session on November 19th or November 29th about, as we phase that program in, we will have more and more dual credit offerings available to students. So what are we doing with these results? Well, at my department, these are our board goals. This is what the board holds us responsible for. So what are we doing to help address some of these things? Well, the first thing is that we are going to increase our number of dual credit courses that are offered. So this year, it actually is 36. We will offer 36 different dual credit courses between the 2 campuses. We are continuing to increase access to these courses by removing the financial barriers, by having the district pick up the actual cost of those. And we are also paying for students to take the Texas Success Initiative test. That is the test that every student must pass in order to qualify to take a credit-bearing class at the college level. If a student does not pass the TSI assessment, they must take a remedial course before being able to take a credit-bearing course. And we don't want our students to have to face that. The latest national studies have found that if a student goes forward to college and has to take even one remedial course, they reduce their chances of graduating from college by 75%. So our goal here in Waco ISD is to make sure that every one of our students moves on to college, TSI complete, and that they do not have to take a remedial course. So the way that we're doing that is we are putting together a cohesive testing plan of how we can get all of our kids tested throughout high school, and the district is picking up the cost of that test. Next, we are raising rigor in all of our advanced placement, PreAP, and dual credit courses through syllabi audits, teacher training, vertical alignment between courses, and teacher coaching to increase passing scores. So I already met with all of the advanced academics teachers, middle school and high school, on August the 17th. I shared all of this data and more with them so that they knew what their task was moving into this year. We talked about the things that are going well. We talked about the opportunities that we still have for success that we want to build on. And I will commit to you that my department is going to keep tenaciously working at that to make sure that our students are being offered the highest quality courses that we can give them. And finally, we are expanding our AP course offerings. We're looking at next year bringing in AP Psychology, which we have never offered before, AP Environmental Science, which I have to tell you makes Dr. Hopkins very happy, and AP Computer Principles, which is a brand new AP course that just started this year. And so we are looking at other opportunities. Last year, we brought in AP Studio Art because we knew we had those students in our schools that were artistically gifted, but yet we weren't offering them the opportunity to put together portfolios, submit them to the College Board, and potentially get college credit. Our first year doing that, 33% of our kids passed the AP portfolio and got college credit for those. And so we are continuing to build on that. This year at University High, last year at University High, they had an 87% pass rate in Spanish language. At Waco High, they had a 100% pass rate. And as I told you at Tennyson, they had a 100% pass rate. Now I have to tell you, that 87% is something to be commended because that teacher had 3 times as many students as Waco High and Tennyson put together, and had 87% of those kids pass. Because we had all these kids that had already gotten credit for these Spanish classes, this year we're offering AP Spanish Literature to allow them to get even more credit with their Spanish language. And so we're looking for those opportunities to continue to enlarge those AP offerings as well. What else are we doing? Well, during STAR testing in March, when our freshmen and sophomores are taking the English STAR test, during those 2 days, we offer mock AP exams to almost all of our AP students. And we partner with a company out of Dallas who actually employs College Board readers who score the actual AP tests. And then they send us back reports for our students showing them their performance on the multiple choice section and giving them scores on each of their individual essays for their test. That is information that students don't even get back from the actual AP test. So we get that into our students' hands about 5 weeks before the AP test, and then our teachers start working with those kids to improve those areas where we see they still need a little bit of help. And so we're really excited about offering our students that opportunity. We are encouraging students to retest on AP exams. A lot of students don't realize it, but if you take an AP test and you don't pass, what the College Board studies have found is that if a student sits in another AP class in that same subject area the following year, that if they go back in and retake that first AP test, that 60% of them raise their score at least 1 point. So last year, we went to our students and we said, hey, would you like to try to retest? We'll pick up the cost. We'll give you another chance to get that AP credit. And many of our students, when they retested, passed so that they picked up that college credit. We are examining alternative ways students can receive credit. One of the things that came up at the Southwestern Forum for the College Board in February was that the College Board is actually considering partnering with the CLEP exam. And I don't know if any of you know what that is, but CLEP is credit by examination. And that's the kind of test that, say as an adult, I decided that I wanted to go to MCC and get an associate's degree. Well, I could tell them, well, I've done a lot of writing in my job. I don't think I really need to sit for a writing class. Well, what they could do is they could offer the opportunity to let me take the CLEP exam, and if I got a high enough score, then I would receive the college credit for that class without having to take it. So what the College Board is considering doing is partnering with the CLEP exam to give students a second chance at getting college credit if they didn't pass the AP test. And so we are currently putting a document together to share within the district with teachers so that they know what schools will accept CLEP credit so that they can share that information with their students in case their students don't pass. We are working to ensure students possess the required test taking and writing strategies. That's one of the things that we notice is weak for our students, is even our strongest students who actually have the content knowledge, when they go into the test, they don't have the confidence to write about it. Or they don't have good test taking skills when they're working with the multiple choice questions, and so they run out of time. The ones that they do, they get right with a high degree of accuracy. They just don't get through enough of them in order to get a passing score. So we're working with that. Last year, we offered Saturday sessions for students to come in on. We pulled groups of kids during other test days and worked with them. And then during AP week, we also had our teachers doing final prep with those students to get them ready. We are expecting all advanced academics teachers to maintain an electronic calendar to help students be able to plan appropriately. I meet with a group of advanced academic students. I have this little advisory board, and one of the consistent messages I heard from them last year was that we never know what is coming. We get 5 projects assigned at the same time. We can't plan for that. We're in all of these other activities, and because of that, our grades suffer. So one of the things that I shared with the advanced academics teachers in August was exactly that information, and I made the expectation be that all of them would keep a Google Calendar for their class so that students could actually have one Google Calendar that all of their classes' due dates would import into, so that they would have one calendar with all the dates. Now, I know that a few campuses are still trying to get trained on Google Calendar, but I can guarantee you that by the end of this grading period, that will largely be in place. That students should be able to maintain a calendar and see what is due for all their advanced academics classes. We are also providing those dual credit lab facilitators that I told you about, actually credentialed teachers that are overseeing the work that students are doing in their online classes to make sure that they're submitting work that is going to be successful. And then we're offering informational sessions like this one about how to help keep our students more successful. So, what are your responsibilities? Well, we need to commit to success. Whether you're a parent or a student, you have to approach these classes saying, it doesn't matter what it takes, I'm going to be successful. Because this is going to help either get me college credit or better prepare me for college. And so, we have a PreAP AP contract. If you have a student that is in one of those classes, you should have seen this contract come home. And what we are committed to doing is really watching students' performances in these advanced academics classes so that we make sure that we are taking care of those kids and responding to where we see there's a need. So, a few things that it says on that contract. Number one, successful completion of each PreAP AP course requires approximately 6 hours of individual study time per week. So please ensure that you plan properly. And that is pretty consistent with any college class. That it is about, for the time you spend in class, about an equivalent amount out of class that you need to spend studying. And so we're really looking at that as being the rule of thumb. If you don't see your kids working on one of those advanced academics classes 6 hours a week, then you need to ask them what they're doing in there. Because those are the kids that are the most successful, the ones that are going back over their notes, the ones that are keeping up with their assignments, and that they're looking ahead to know what's coming so that it doesn't all fall on them at the same time. Now, if a student falls below a 75 in a PreAP or AP class at the end of a grading period, upon communication with the student and the teacher and the parent and the counselor and or an administrator, the student will be placed on probation, which means they are given one more grading period, whether that be a progress report or a report card, to bring that grade above a 75. And on that contract, if you get contacted about one of these, it's got a section. Here's what the teacher agrees to do. Here's what the parent agrees to do. Here's what the student agrees to do. And if all of those things are taken care of, what the teacher is saying is that the student should be able to get their grade into a passing range. If those things don't happen, and the student is still below a 75, then that contract can be modified and the student is given one more 3-week period to bring that grade to passing or above a 75. If the student does not, then the student can be removed at request of the teacher from the class. Because what we find ends up happening is the teacher starts spending more and more time focused on that student, and the students that are doing the work and are working ahead, then those students start getting neglected. And so if a student wants to be in that class, there's an expectation that they are going to do the work and perform at a 75 or higher. Last thing, if the grade has not been brought up by the end of the subsequent grading period, the student can be removed. And remember, I've got that word "can" in there because it is really by request of the teacher. If the teacher really thinks that that student is trying the hardest that they can and they just need a little bit more time, the teacher doesn't have to take the student out. But if the teacher really is seeing that more and more of the focus is going toward that student, to keep that student on task, to keep that student at a passing level, then that teacher can request for the student to be removed. Okay, our grading policy for our middle and high school PreAP and AP classes. Daily work counts as 40% of the grade. No more than 20% of that daily grade in each period shall be homework. So they have other daily work that is done in class other than just homework. And that is really set up so that if we have a student that doesn't really have the home setting to be able to get homework done and it's not being turned in, that student won't fail simply from not turning in homework. It's limited to 20% of the grade. And then major assignments and or tests are 60% of the grade. That must include a minimum of 3 unit, chapter, or skills tests and or major assignments addressing the essential elements such as projects, major reports or compositions, journals, notebooks, or portfolios. The only qualifier to that policy is for science, and that is that they can have up to 20% of their grade tied to labs. And then no more than 1 major grade in each grading period shall be home projects. So these are actually out of the Waco ISD grading policy, which every teacher must abide by. Dual credit grading, a little bit different. Since the dual credit grades are actually not given by Waco ISD, they're actually given by the higher education institution, they do not abide by these same requirements. So teachers are not required to have 6 grades for every report card. It is a college course. And if you have ever taken a college course, you will know that some college courses have a midterm exam and a final paper. These kids are in college courses, and their grading is equivalent to a college course. The other thing is that if you look for a dual credit class on the grade book, you will see that it has an NG, that there is no grade. And that is because under the Federal Educational Right to Privacy Act, grades can only be shared with the student. If they are college credit-bearing classes, the only way that a parent can see a grade is to get the student's Blackboard login, log into their account, or have them log in front of you, and actually look at their grades. Because the only grade that is going to be put in the Waco ISD gradebook is the grade we receive on the final transcript at the end of the semester from MCC. So if you have questions about grades before then, that is what Ms. Davis's job is. So every 3 weeks, she gets an update from the MCC professors that have our students, from the Waco ISD teachers employed by MCC who are teaching our dual credit courses, so that she can monitor what our students are doing in those classes, and she can actually meet with those kids that are struggling. Ms. Reed does the same thing on the Waco High side. And so they are constantly monitoring to make sure that we keep our passing rate high so our kids can get that college credit. Again, they're shared in 3-week intervals. So if there's ever a time that you feel like your student is struggling and you're not really sure, you can contact Ms. Davis, you can contact Ms. Reed, and they would be able to follow up with the actual professor and find out if that was true. But you'll probably hear from them before they hear from you. Because if they have a problem with a student not being successful, they're going to reach out to you and let you know. Credit weighting policy. This is the way that our grades are weighted in Waco ISD. And you will see here that we have 3 tiers. Tier 1 is our standard level classes. They are weighted as a 1. Our Tier 2 classes are our PreAP classes. They are weighted at a 1.1. So 100 in a standard class is equal to a grade of 110 in a PreAP class. Tier 3 up there are our advanced placement and dual credit courses, and they are weighted at a 1.15. So 100 in a standard class would be equal to a 115 in an AP or dual credit class. And again, the reason that the grading is done like this is so that if a student wants to challenge themselves and take a more difficult course, they're not going to be penalized if their grade happens to be a bit lower. They actually will have the opportunity to have a same, if not higher, grade point average than a student with that same grade in a standard level class. All right, so let's talk about this. A dozen actions parents can take to increase success. And You know, I've been a teacher, I've been in education now for 26 years, and I have taught AP for 7 of those years. I've taught middle school, I've taught high school, I've been an administrator, and so I have seen where students make their mistakes. So what I tried to put together for you was an easy little list of things that you can do that will really keep your students on track, and students will get a list about 12 things that they can do to keep themselves successful. And the lists really kind of go together, but are written for the individual group. So first thing, monitor your child's grades. Students want to make it seem like a big deal, like you're invading their privacy. If you ask them about grades or that you want to get into the grade book and see what's going on, no, that is your right as a parent. And the more that you actually are looking at their grades and actually holding them accountable for them, the more students will see those grades as being important. But when they don't think anybody's ever looking, that's the degree of importance they give to those grades. So you want to make sure that you are, looking at those grades, talking to students about what grades they're getting, why those grades occurred, what might be something that can help those grades improve, so that that dialogue starts. Because the more that grades become a focus, the more students are going to focus on grades. All right, number 2, encourage your child to self-advocate when you see a problem. All right, I've got three children of my own that are in college right now. And I will tell you that one of the hardest things for me was letting go. Was actually letting them go off to college and not checking up on them all the time, not looking at their credit card statement or their bank statement, not putting a tracking device on their cars. It was really hard. But at some point, students have to become responsible for themselves. And you calling the school and calling the counselor and calling the principal and trying to get a hold of a professor at MCC because you want to know what's going on in the class, that is not helpful. Because that never puts the responsibility on the student. And if we want these students to actually leave Waco ISD and go on for an advanced degree, they have to understand how to operate without you doing all the work. So, I'm not saying abandon your child, but when you see a problem, talk to your child about how they might go about coping with that problem. Who would they talk to? Who would they go to? Who are they going to tell that they need help, and what kind of help is that? And then make it their responsibility to self-advocate. The more that you can get them doing that, the better prepared they are going to be when they leave you and move on for an advanced education. They're going to know how to problem solve and how to troubleshoot so that they can take care of those problems when they arise. Number 3, check with your child about his or her learning, assignments, tests, or projects. So again, students should have a good idea in our advanced academics classes about when things are due. Ask. When you're visiting with your child, when you've got them in the car and they're a captive audience, they can't get away from you, that's a perfect time. Start asking questions. What do you have due this week? Have you started that? When's your next test in this class? The more they think that you're interested, the more, again, they're going to see it as important, and they're going to make it a point to come to you and talk about those topics. They're also going to be more apt to talk about you when things start to go south and they didn't do so well. Rather than just wait and surprise, you get the progress report with the F on there, they'll be the one to come and tell you, hey, here's what's going on and I don't really know what to do about this. So that you might offer them some advice on how to best approach a teacher, talk to a counselor, how to overcome an assignment that they're having difficulty with, that's the assistance that they really need. But it starts with you actually having that dialogue. Number 4, help your child establish good study habits. It is amazing to me as I sit in classes and I observe teachers when I look around at students, how many students are nodding off in class. And I'm not talking about teachers that are boring. I'm talking about really dynamic teachers that are really going over important, interesting material, and students are barely able to keep their eyes open. And then I'll talk to the kids, because I know a lot of the kids. And so I'll say, hey, what was going on today? And they're like, oh, I just was playing video games too late last night. Well, that's our responsibility to fix. And so if you can help students set up good study habits, good sleeping habits, good eating habits, studies have found that when students have a nutritional meal in the morning, that it actually has a correlation to their success educationally. And so making sure that students aren't getting up 5 minutes before the bus is going to be there, throwing on some clothes and rushing out the door, that they actually get up with enough time to wake up, eat a little bit, get themselves prepared for the day. You can help us get those good habits made. And again, the great thing about it is, if you do that little bit of work now, when students move away and go to college, they have those habits ready. So that when you're not there every day, reminding them to get up, reminding them to eat, reminding them to turn the television off when they're trying to study, they're going to be more successful. Next one, examine your child's binders and folders periodically. We feel like once our kids get past elementary school, we don't need to do that weekly folder check. Everybody remember that? Right? You check the folder for any announcements, you grade a paper. Well, we feel like when they get into middle school or high school, we're somehow invading their privacy. No, again, they don't have privacy. They're still children. They still need to be watched over. And the sad thing about our kids is that they're not good at keeping a hold of the things that are the most important. So what happens is they roll around to the end of the semester. Now it is semester exam time. They can't lay their hands on the notes from class, on the quizzes that they got back on which the exam is going to be based, and that is detrimental to their grades. So sitting down with your kid every once in a while and saying, hey, show me your binder. If your child is an avid, that is one of their big things that they push, is those organizational strategies for students, because they know how impactful that is on student performance. But if you can just sit down with your kid, and I'm going to tell you, I've seen kids that I swear to you, it looked like a bomb exploded in their backpack. Paper sticking out the side, they're digging through, trying to find the assignment that's due. That is not helpful to their grades. So again, I'm not saying it has to be done every night, but occasionally, just ask your kid, can I see your folders? Let's look at your binder. What are you doing? Let me see what your papers look like. All right, next one. Again, support that good sleeping, eating, time management that goes along with those study habits, but really making sure that students understand that they cannot get by on 3 hours of sleep. And one of the things that I think it's on the next slide, that we often find, especially with our advanced academics kids, is that they are way too overcommitted. They will sign up for every club. They will try to be in 5 different extracurriculars, and then they're signed up for 3 dual credit classes, an AP class, and 2 pre-AP classes. No one can do that. So, especially if the trade-off is they're going to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning every day trying to keep up with their assignments, and they're going to try to survive on 4 hours of sleep. Kids' bodies are still growing. They need sleep to do that. And so that is not the way that they want to go about making themselves more successful. So just monitoring those things, making sure they're taking time to eat, that they're eating things that are nutritional, and they're not just shoving down junk food to try to keep their energy up. if I see my daughter walk in from her college class with another monster in her hand, I'm going to knock it out of it. Because it really bothers me. Because that's telling me she's not getting enough sleep and planning well enough to get what she needs done. And so you really want to keep an eye on those things. Because I can tell you from sitting in these classes, and I could get any teacher from either high school in here to tell you the same thing, those things detrimentally impact our kids in Waco ISD. Am I right? Sleeping, eating, studying habits, right there. If we could get those three things under control, we would see a much more successful group of students academically. Next one, review the syllabi for the dual credit courses. So if your child has any dual credit courses, and even most of the advanced academics AP or pre-AP courses, they have some kind of syllabus. And now, where they have the electronic calendar, they have due dates. They know when things are coming up. One of the places that students get in trouble with our dual credit classes is they don't read them carefully enough to understand what professors' attendance policies and grading policies are. And one of the things that, as a parent, you need to realize, and we're going over with students to make them realize, is in a dual credit class, there is no such thing as an excused absence. An absence is an absence. And just because you are absent does not mean that your assignment is not due. All of the due dates are given up front. That due date, your work is due whether you are in school that day or not. And that is one thing that our students are having a really hard time adjusting to. So something that I know if you have dual credit students that you can help us out with is making sure that students understand it's due that day and they need to get it turned in. Talk about the course material with your child. A lot of times when a student has to actually tell you what they're learning, it will help your student figure out what they don't understand because they can't explain it to you. And so then it opens the conversation for you to say, well, what don't you understand about that? Well, can you ask the teacher about that tomorrow? What questions are you going to ask? So that you can redirect that student right back to the teacher and make sure that the student gets that necessary information. Remind students of available support resources. So if they are a dual credit student, they are also an MCC student, which means those students have access to every service that is open to any MCC student. So a dual credit student has free tutoring through MCC available to them. They can go to the Academic Excellence Center, which sits across from the library on MCC's campus. They have study rooms there. They have library. They have all the computerized library accessible to the kids. They can go in there and they can work on Play-Doh. They have computers accessible to them where they can go in and work on papers for classes. They have one-on-one help that the students can go in there, say, I'm here for writing help, and they will have people in there that will go and sit down with that student and help them with assignments. If they are in a pre-AP or an AP student, they can look for lots of help on campus. They can go to Miss Reed or Miss Davis. If they need help figuring out where to turn, they can go to their teacher, they can go to their counselor, they can go to other teachers in that same content area, or they can contact me and I will give them suggestions. But there are lots of places that our students can get help that they're not taking advantage of. Number 10, encourage students to make good scheduling decisions. Again, not overcommitting themselves and making sure that they have time to get through what they've already signed up for before they add on something else. Remind students to cite sources when writing papers for classes. This is a big one, especially as they move into those college level AP and dual credit courses. Students are used to being able to just go onto the internet and grab some information and put it into a paper. We had 5 students last summer, not this summer, the previous summer, 5 students who failed their US government course because they plagiarized their paper for class. And it wasn't really anything that they did purposely, it's that they didn't realize that they had to cite those sources. But the teacher did. So you want to make sure that when you see your kids working on projects or papers, that they are citing their sources. And then the last one, ensure appropriate time for review around semester exams and AP exams. AP examinations are the first 2 weeks of May every year. So if you have a student in an AP class, starting in about the second week of April, you should be seeing them reviewing material. Dual credit classes have exams at the end of every semester. So at the end of the semester, if you're not seeing kids get out their old notes, get out their previous tests and quizzes and starting to review those, then you should be asking why. All right, so those are the 12 strategies I have for you. Thank you very much for being here tonight.